do you talk, like, do you get the staff, do you get your team to talk to people and go, what do you want?
We got a new menu change. What do you think of it? What would you like to see on there?
Yeah.
Or before we do a menu change, say that.
Yeah.
If you've got a regular customer that's coming to the restaurant 2 or 3 times a week and you ask them their opinion, they're going to feel like a rock star.
Like, what do you want to see on here? Or,
Is there anything you'd love to see on the menu we haven't had on here before?
Has there anyone ever said anything you're like, holy shit, didn't
Fish
see
and
that coming?
chips.
Yeah, right. Morning, TK.
Hello, Peter.
How are you?
I'm very well. You?
Very well, thank you.
That's why no golf on today.
Yeah, no, there was.
Oh, was there?
Yeah. Finished early. Playoffs.
Oh, sorry. No major.
Not live.
No,
Yeah, it's not live. Yeah, no, I did check that. Luckily, I was up early enough to catch the end and watch the robot win another one.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Anyway, we're not here to talk about golf specifically. It can come
fixated on his caddy.
Well, it's the wealthier, wasn't he? Number 23 earner on the PGA Tour this year is a caddy. 10% of a lot. 30 mil he's won this year. The Scotty has, so 3 mil to the caddy. So
his caddy's a millionaire.
All right, let's. We're going to have a bit of a talk today about.
Seems very serious.
The state of the world. Well, it was interesting. I was having this conversation with someone last week about why is every second restaurant closing, and it's sort of. I think that we're seeing it more and more. The media's talking about it more and more, and there's big names that are closing. And I think that's the thing where people are starting to sort of pay attention now. Places like Tetsuya's, Kylie Kwong in Sydney, she's shutting her place down. So there's things like that all of a sudden it's like, I think a lot of people don't pay attention as much when it's unfortunately, when it's like a mum and dad cafe in the burbs, people don't care as much if that happens, which is kind of horrible. But
I think that we got to put it in context too, because the two that you just mentioned, they didn't go broke,
right?
So they're shutting.
Yeah.
So my understanding, without any sort of intel on Tetsuya's, is they couldn't get a deal done with a new lease
for the lease, yeah.
Or that site. Clearly, you've been there. It'd be hard pressed to find a more central CBD location than that, and it's hardly like a little cookie box. It's a beautiful building. So yeah. I'm assuming that the developer wants to develop that land. But yeah, and Kylie Kwong, my understanding of it as well is that she was like, well, do I sign and go again?
Rather 10 or, yeah.
And I guess that's when you got somebody like that who's been doing it successfully for so long, goes, well, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Not saying that that's any better or worse than a mum and dad cafe going bankrupt, because it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
The industry is definitely a worse place without Tetsuya and Kylie Kwong, that's for sure.
100%.
Which is sad.
Yeah, it is. And I think you raise a good point, though, is that there are different ways, different reasons for closing right now. But a lot of people are talking about the same sort of things over and over again that are going to, even if you're in a position where you're not being made to close or forced to close, you're making that decision yourself. A lot of these things are coming into it. Big one, obviously, is wages. Wage increase coming again in 2 weeks' time. When the new start of the new financial year, 3.whatever% it is, and a lot of businesses are sort of screaming about that. And again, and you've said this before, it's not about not giving someone a living wage or giving them enough money. It's like it's just all got to make sense. And the only way to sort of, when those costs go up, there's only really one way to sort of deal with that, because there's a margin is a margin, right? So if you've got to operate on a certain margin, if your costs go up, then your sale price has to go up. But will the market tolerate that? And at the moment, I mean, I actually looked at a menu on the weekend for somewhere, and the cheapest main course on the menu was $57. Now, I remember back in the days of Restaurant 2, this is 100 years ago, but we had a venison dish on there. It was $48, and everyone thought we were mad. But now when a main course is $57, it's just like, okay, all right. And I get it. I completely get it. And it's not going to – there's certain restaurants where you just know you're going to spend more money. Things are more expensive based on everything, produce, the service level, the quality of everything, where it is, all that kind of stuff. But what's the biggest issue? Is there one?
Well, 2005, Wine Bar, we had all of our entrees set at $15 and all of our main courses set at $25, including a 200-gram piece of fish and a 250-gram eye fillet back then.
Yeah.
And I challenge you to tell me the last time you had a 250-gram eye fillet. Like, the fucker was that big.
Yeah.
Like, now it's gone to 200 to 180. You can't cut it anymore, so the price has to go up.
Yeah.
But have you noticed every business owner that we've had on the podcast says the same thing. And it's this constant push and pull regarding labour. Now, I'm with you. Like, everybody's entitled to earn a fair wage, but I would love some, it just seems lack of common sense. If you're trying to, and if you just pick an item, whether it be fuel or a lettuce, the cost of the lettuce is a direct derivative of how much it costs to buy the product and all of the bits and pieces to get it to the shelf, including every set of hands that it touches. Now, you have something like food where it attracts, and there's a lot of minimum wage earners in the food industry, be it farmers, packers, drivers, all the way up to people putting that beautiful iceberg lettuce on the shelf in the supermarket. So every single time that the government impacts wages on a increasing level, that price of that lettuce is going to go up.
Yeah.
I just don't. I find it just so ignorant when we've got a cost of living crisis at the moment, and the number one thing they want to do is drive wages up, because it's not helping it. It's not helping. You would get better relief out of a reduction in the cost of power or gas or water, or because all those things impact that price of that lettuce. But if you concentrate on labour, as soon as that labour is affected, the price of the lettuce goes up. But if you can give me just a couple of bucks off my power bill, that's going to drive the cost of the lettuce down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, one's not pushing and pulling in opposite directions than the other. It's really difficult to explain. But the other thing that I want to say is that there's a lot of media, and there always has been a lot of media around restaurants and new restaurants opening and restaurants closing. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never seen so many restaurants open since COVID in my life.
As in new restaurants?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, holy hell.
So why? I mean, why do you think that is?
I think we went through that purple patch as soon as we came out of COVID, where there was an insatiable appetite for people to eat out.
When people were stuck here as well, or like they were in the country and couldn't
leave. So, these people who've never been in the food game before goes, oh my God, look how busy these restaurants are. We got to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
And why you do that, considering the restaurant industry got an absolute hiding in the middle of COVID, but it happened.
Yeah.
I have never seen so many new restaurants open as what I have in the last 3 years. So natural rate of attrition says the good ones will keep trading and the shit ones will go broke.
Yeah.
Now, usually in normal days, 90% of restaurants go broke in the first year of operation. I don't think those numbers are any different or worse than normal.
That's what I was going to
ask.
It's
just more restaurants have opened, so more have closed.
So it's just a volume thing. It's like if there's 100 restaurants that have opened, 90 of them are going to shut. We're just hearing about it more if that number's 10x. So because there's a lot more people.
If I grab a handful of marbles, I've got 10 marbles in my hand, and I say 2 of these marbles will land on this table, and I throw them up. If I say give you the same numbers, except I've got 100 marbles and 2 of them are going to land on the table, it's just more are falling.
Yeah.
It's, I just think that, I can't help but think that it's just a natural rate of attrition. It's got a great deal to do with it, and there's no doubt that the market's hard.
Yeah.
But you have to more than ever trust the fact that restaurants are a simple game of mathematics and nothing else.
When you say it's tough, like what are the things, apart from wages, what are the other things that are becoming excruciating when you look at the bills every week, every month?
Things that you have no say in changing.
Yeah.
Electricity.
Yeah. Gas.
Trade waste, so water.
Yeah.
750% increase in this time last year. 750%. We have no say in that.
It just is what it is.
Unity Water is literally, the way that they did that is no different than Al Capone. And I said that to them. Because you can argue the point, it's not going to change anything. And if you don't pay, they shut your water off. So it's like, they could have done it 7,500%, and I'd have no choice.
Yeah.
They're the main ones. Like, look at the booze excise. Like, you're first hand in that.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't. There's no wondering. I've had this conversation with an electrician friend of mine this morning that a lot of restaurants, I believe, also are trading as good as ever, but the bottom line is just getting narrower and narrower and narrower.
So when you say, just so we can explain that to people, so like you've got top line and bottom line. So
what
top line
comes in the till?
Yep.
And what happens
Bottom
at the end of it
once
everything,
all of your costs.
once everything's paid for.
Yeah.
Because I believe that we're in a fortunate situation where most of our restaurants are trading on par, if not better than last year. So we've seen some growth.
Yeah.
But the bottom line's not healthier.
Yeah.
Like that net profit.
So the costs are increasing even if the revenue's not. Yeah.
So we either have to get smarter and get tighter in some of the things that we're doing, like lose a linen napkin, put a paper one down, or there's only so much you can do before you start eroding a brand as well. But you know, these things that we don't have any control over, like super going up, people go, oh yeah, super should go up. But if you take any business, it doesn't matter whether it's big or small, 12% of every person's pay, you know, you go back 5 years ago, it was 9%.
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge amount. Considering a lot of restaurants, like I remember Neil Perry when he had the original Rockpool was saying he worked on a 2% bottom line. So 2% net profit.
Yeah.
So he might do $10 million in trade. Like, you think about the work that goes into that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. And I think that, you know, a lot of people have talked about this before, but I mean, hospitality has always been single digits. Just that's what it's always been. I mean, there is definitely, if you've got $500,000, you're almost better off putting it in the bank.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of if you're after a return, because it's going to be guaranteed. You're not going to have, you know, something go wrong. It's not going to disappear in a hurry. Whereas it's very easy to swallow $500,000 in a restaurant. I mean, God, you could do a kitchen fit out for $500,000 without even touching the sides. So that idea of sort of, you know, capital like if someone's investing their capital and then they're just not going to make any money, it's why would you do it?
And the one thing that restaurants will do over and above any other business that I know of is if it's failing, it will cut you deep, like real quick.
Personally, or
well, more to the point, like if you've got a failing, I don't know, gift shop, I don't think you're gonna. It's impossible that you're gonna bleed as much money as what you would if you're in a restaurant,
right?
Because I think the difference is like cutting your finger or cutting your jugular. Like if we've had a fish and chip shop that's failed before and it cost us $70,000 and it was over 4 months.
Yeah.
You know, I feel as I'm a pretty good operator that looks at my numbers hard. I'm suggesting if a fish and chip operator was a mum and dad who'd never been in the game before, it would probably be $170,000
in that amount of time.
Yeah, but then you know, how the doom and gloom of all these restaurants closing. Does anybody want to talk about the fact that Guzman and Gomez just got listed on the stock exchange with a market cap of $3 billion?
Well, and I mean, what are your thoughts there? I mean, whilst you bring it up, I mean, do food IPOs work historically? I mean, restaurant IPOs, do they work?
Shake Shack's done all right.
Yeah.
I mean, for every, I probably don't know enough, or I don't know it.
Yeah.
You only hear about the good news stories there, unfortunately, I think. Yeah. I don't know many that are listed, to be honest.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, and then why? And then why would you? I mean, I get it, because then, you know, the expansion, if there's cash there, you can now expand.
Well, GYG's expanding quicker than KFC in America.
Yeah, right. So there's in this market, there is this sort of weird kind of dichotomy where you've got, and we're hearing like the squeaky wheel, I suppose, in terms of we're hearing about all this doom and gloom, but you've got on the other side, you've got some great restaurants doing really great things and aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So is it that sort of pool in the middle where it's just a mediocre anything, it's just run of the mill kind of anything? Is that what's going to go? We're going to lose that. We're going to have the low end fast, like the fish and chip shops. There's certain places that just will always exist, and then you've got the great restaurants of the world, but it's this pool in the middle that is really tough, right?
Which I think I've said, I think I've said it in the podcast before, that I hope I'm wrong, but I can really see a day where the real fast casual joints like the Macca's, KFC, GYG, Hungry Jack's, they'll prosper because they will double down on AI and robotics. So their cost of labour will plummet. That middle ground, probably, unfortunately, like Rice Boy, Piggyback, Spiro, will no longer exist. And then the super top end places, the Margarets, the Keys, probably not even Market Bistro. The super top end guys will maybe trade for 3 days a week, be absolutely full,
Yeah.
and will be 500 ahead.
It's interesting. I mean, like that kind of model, I just can't help but think of Thierry Galichet in Brisbane, who for many years, worked weekends, had medium rare, then turned into Montrachet, and then, when he was at Montrachet, he's like, I don't want to work weekends anymore. So he just said, I'm not open on the weekends, and I'm open Monday to Thursday, lunch and dinner, and then we'll do lunch on a Friday, then we'll go home. Now, that was a personal decision that he made for his lifestyle and everything else. He wanted to have those weekends, but it also meant that he attracted staff that they could work, like long-term hospitality staff could now work Monday to Friday and have a semblance of a life. And I wonder if, like, that model of...
He was full all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
He didn't.
Absolutely full.
I don't think
you just worked around it. But he also took him 25 years to get to that point.
I was about to say, you couldn't have done that with a mediocre product.
No, absolutely.
I think that people are like, well, if I can't go Saturday, then I'll go Thursday.
Exactly. And he sort of managed to do that, but by being really, really good at what he did,
If you're less than that,
then you're done.
Man walking.
But
speaking of Ricky's, the guys up in Noosa, they shut 2 days a week over COVID because they couldn't get the staff. So their revenue's down, but their bottom line, their net profit has never been better.
Yeah. And I think
so they haven't reopened. They're
on
just
those days,
5 days a week.
I know there's plenty of places that talked about that where they've cut their hours and they're actually making more money because the expenditure's not as high over those periods. But you've also got the argument that, well, I'm paying rent, so why would I not open on those days? Like, I get it, everyone's got to have time off, but
it's a simple multiplier of how many staff do you need to open.
Yeah.
What sort of trade do you do? And if the numbers don't add up, then the problem with closing, but I guess, and we've always ran a model, apart from RBs here, we've always ran a model of you're open, and we trade every day except for Christmas Day. And the theory behind that for us was we don't want people guessing whether or not we're open.
So there's consistency. It's like it's just always open. Yeah.
Always open. And I think that's the quintessential local neighbourhood restaurant. Like, if you ask a lot of people, the popularity of Rice Boy has been the fact that it feels like the locals own it.
Right.
Because we get really busy after school holidays because the locals just veto us during school holidays.
Because they know it's going to be full, yeah.
Mooloolaba pumps during the school holidays. So as soon as the school holidays are over and the tourists go home, then all the locals come back and hit Rice Boy again, which is great. But
and I think a similar thing probably happens in Noosa and Hastings Street. It's the same thing where it's like it's just gross for certain periods of the year because it's just so busy. It's one of those things. What an amazing problem to have. It's so busy, so I don't want to go there, But as long as they come back, the challenge is if they don't come back, it's like, well, hang on, what are we doing wrong? Because you can't have those peaks and troughs anymore.
It's like the gauge of a great restaurant is to go on a rainy Monday night in the middle of winter and see how busy you are.
Yeah.
Because any man and his dog during school holidays should be busy.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I will say is that all you've got to do is every single restaurant, if people ask me to do any consulting, I always ask them what their break even is. And it's amazing, Peter. You'd be so shocked at the amount of people that have no idea.
They don't know what they've got to make in a week to just cover
what's
everything.
The break even?
Yeah.
And that's not a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
But
to work out that cost, you mean?
Yeah. Just if you use zero, it can tell you straight away, basically. You know what I mean? So, but the thing that you got to do, is for me, any advice that I've got for people in the hospitality game, whether you're a 50-year veteran or not, is don't be afraid to cut the head off the snake. And if you are bleeding uncontrollably, you're bleeding cash out of your business, don't be afraid to close it before it takes the house of cards away.
Yeah.
And for anyone coming into the industry, make sure that you get some really good advice around your lease.
Yeah.
So then if worst case scenario happens, you know that you're not going to lose everything.
Yeah. I think that idea, and we've talked about this before, the exit strategy. A lot of people, particularly in hospitality, just go in, all not just seeing gold, but it's like, they look at it and go, this is going to work. We're great. We're good mates. This is going to be fantastic. Everything's going to work. But there's no plan for when it does shit the bed, and if it does, and invariably something will happen at some point in time. It's like, if you don't have a plan for that, then what happens? And then how hard is it to pull yourself out of that? And that idea of, like you said before, being able to acknowledge it. What are the things people should be looking for if they're operating a venue and it's not quite, and a lot of people in hospitality will operate at almost break even on a regular basis, and there might be a couple of bucks left every week or every second week or whatever it may be.
But we do things like we run a weekly, we call it a revenue journal.
Yeah.
And so a few things happen with the revenue journal is that we track the data. So ever since we've been opened, I can go back and pick since 2017 on the first week of any month or any day, I can go back and give you historical data over every year that we've been open. So we track that data. So that's point number one. So I've got a really good
see patterns.
Yeah, no, so I can really see if there is any peaks and troughs or if something significant's happening, because simple things like planning annual leave is super important, because you want to be able to take some time off, or you want your staff to be able to take time off without replacing them with casual labor.
Yeah.
But point number one, revenue journal, tracking the data so then you can see.
Yeah.
But also what that does is we do, so the total expenditure for food, total expenditure for beverage, which is very easy to do.
Yeah.
If you got a half decent
any point of sale system's going to have that these days. So
then your beverage purchases, your food purchases, and we just divide the food purchases into food sales, beverage purchases and beverage sales, and just see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Now, if one of them's high, it doesn't take into account stock on the shelf.
Yeah.
So if it's high, did I spend a bunch?
Yeah. What do we buy? There was something came in this week we had to buy.
We call it a flash food cost or a flash beverage cost.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at that and you go, well, in my budget, and every budget's different, just say we've got a 30% food cost and a 30% beverage cost.
Mm-hmm.
And in that revenue journal, that's 35 or 32 or 31. Treat 1% like 90.
Right.
Like you
There's
need to find it.
Yeah.
Because it could be your last dollar.
Yeah.
So if you do that every week, by the time you get to the end of the month, you're not going to shit the bed.
Yeah.
You're going to know what's happening.
Because it won't be a surprise by that time.
And if by chance I'm looking at some things, and you know what chefs and bartenders and restaurant managers are like, missing invoices and so forth.
It's easy. I mean, it's easy to miss something. We all miss things. Yeah.
As soon as I get we do revenue journals and send them out to our staff by Wednesday every week.
Yeah.
And
to
then
the key team, the management team.
The kitchen head chef and sous chef get it, restaurant manager and assistant manager get it.
Yeah.
But then if something looks a bit odd, I'll just grab the revenue journal, jump on our bank account, and depending on what restaurant it is, I'll just look at the bank account, look at the revenue journal. And if something's skewed, like just say the revenue journal's telling a horror story, but the bank balance isn't, I'm like, that's
nothing to worry
wrong.
about.
Or there could be a missing invoice or double up on an invoice or something like that. And you can sort of see that more towards the end of the month, but that data, we make so many decisions based on those revenue journals. So you just got to really make sure that you're looking heavily into your business on a day-to-day basis. And then you don't wait until it's really fucked before you have to do something about it.
I think that you keep saying data, and I think it's one of those things where a lot of people get freaked out by the word data because they don't necessarily know what it means. Yeah. But it's just like, it's just looking at the numbers. It's literally going, right, this is what's coming in, this is what's going out, where are we at?
What about the thing that frustrates me is I see when I know that when a restaurant fails, the people at the helm are embarrassed, right? And
there's a pride thing there, of course.
There really is. And they throw terms out there like, my rent's gone up by $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't change your lease.
Yeah, right.
Like, when has your lease expired?
Yeah. Well, that's not a surprise $50,000 increase. Is that what you mean? Like, it's like that was always going to come,
or it's bullshit.
Right.
Because you just can't put the rent up.
Yeah.
By $50,000. You can't put it up by $5 without there being in your lease. There'll be things like rent review.
There's caveats in there of what you can and can't do.
But you can't. The rent review is clearly based on the market.
Yeah.
And if you think that that's unreasonable, then there's laws against that happening.
Yeah. Do you think some landlords are taking the piss?
Yeah, but you can only take the piss so much.
Right.
Like, so my super fund owns Piggyback.
Yeah.
Now, if I turn around and go, no, I'll probably do ULO General Store because we still own the freeholder ULO, but we've sold the business. So if I turned around and said, I want to put my rent up by $50,000 a year, I'd be in court. I'm not allowed to do that.
But also, you'd lose the tenant. Well, I mean, pure and simple.
You can't do it, but
Yeah.
it's no point talking hypotheticals
It's
because
just
it's
not gonna
against the
happen.
law. You
Yeah.
can't do it. And even if it's the funny thing is, unless you're at a rent review stage of your lease or this CPI, which you've agreed to
Yep.
when you sign the lease, CPI, it's been, call it 3 or 4% for the last ever.
Yeah.
If it's not that, like that should happen year on year. That's why if you go sign a lease now and your lease is $100,000 a year, do the maths at the last year of your
On
lease.
the 10th year of the lease.
Because every year it's going to go up by whatever that.
Yeah. And that's really good advice, because that's something that people probably forget. It's just like, all of those things that are just going to go up, even down to products. You know that everything you buy, eat and drink, they're going to go up. I mean, beer goes up every single year without fail.
Guarantee you most leases won't have the rent will go up at a minimum of 3% every year.
Yeah.
So if you're not increasing your trade by 3% every year, you're going to go backwards.
Because rent's the like a big one, right? It's a huge
top
part
5.
Of it. Yeah. And
definitely.
I think that's a lot of people. I was always told that rent can't be more than 10% of your gross revenue.
Yeah.
Simple as
You'll
that.
never make a penny.
So, and that's the thing. And then particularly
if you do the maths on $100,000, but and what a lot of leases look like now is it's a 5% increase in your rent every year. So if you go 5% of 150, sorry, 5%. If you're at $100,000, 5% of that is $5,000. But then if you sign a 10-year lease, $50,000.
Yeah.
Can you forecast 10 years in advance and go, can I increase our revenue
by that
at a bare minimum
to handle that? So, and
if
so
the answer is no, don't do it.
So do you think a lot of people are forecasting that far ahead?
That's why 90% close.
Because they just don't see it coming, or they don't know.
There's no planning, mate. There's no, like, it's so whimsical, kissing cheeks, shaking hands.
We get excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I reckon, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you've owned your own restaurant as well as worked in many. You worked harder when you owned it.
Yeah, totally.
But most people think that when you own it, all you do is kiss cheeks, shake hands, and have a glass of champagne.
No, I think I think that's what people sort of maybe see. You're right, or they think it is, and then. But the reality is obviously nothing like that.
No.
I remember years and years ago, a mate came to me and said, I'm thinking about opening somewhere. What should I do? I said, go and work somewhere for a month, with no experience. And after a month, he's like, I'm not doing that. It's like, no shit, because it's like you've got to want to do this. And you've got to be prepared for all those sacrifices. And we've spoken to plenty of people on the podcast that have said, they miss things, family is obviously the first thing we avoid because we're fucking idiots. So we kick our family to the curb first up, and work's more important, which is just not the case. And it takes you a long time to realize that, I suppose, in your life, where it's like that's not the number one thing, but you will sacrifice everything when it's yours. And the problem is that just becomes a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
And if it's going down, then you just think you can work harder and get yourself out of it. But then I think a lot of people hang on just too long.
Yeah.
And it's just that idea of at what point do you cut, like you said, you cut the head off it, because there is ego, huge ego in our game. And the idea of, I suppose, a lot of people don't want to fail. That fear of failure is massive for most people.
It's like quicksand, I guess. Before you get in over your head, pull a pin. But that starts from when you find a site and you go, yes, I think that this can work. Get the use of a good lawyer or even a good friend who may have some knowledge in it. It's the most critical part of it, because that is your get out of jail, not free card, but
it's going to cost you something for sure.
Fuck.
Yeah.
But it's so important. And more landlords are becoming, I suppose, smarter at the fact that if they've got a failing tenant in there who's not paying any rent, their energy and effort's better put into finding a new tenant than sending you broke. But the way to best negotiate that from the start is just offer a bigger security deposit to them, an extra month.
Yeah.
Now, I don't say that flippantly, because it could be an extra
huge dollars,
20 grand. But if you've signed a 10-year lease, you will know within the first year whether or not you're going to fail. And if you are failing, an extra month is not going to hurt you. You shouldn't, if you don't have it, you shouldn't open a restaurant anyway. Because that I have got out of leases before, and it's a difficult thing to do. because you never want to let somebody down. And the landlord's invested a bunch of money into your trust and all the rest of it. And then you're going to give them the keys back after 12 months. I've done that twice.
Yeah.
But I spent the money up front negotiating the lease properly. So then I was protected, because that additional, I think it was 18 grand or 16 grand additional months worth of rent that I had to pay as a security deposit, that would have been 10 times that over a 10-year lease if the landlord couldn't find a tenant there for some reason.
And it's, I mean, those things are, thing, you get to a point where it's like it's inevitable. You can see what's going to happen, but you don't want to leave. How, you've seen it before. How bad can it get? Like how quickly can people go down?
A month?
Yeah.
I've seen restaurants in Maroochydore, not far from Market Bistro, spend in excess of $1 million on a fit out.
Yeah.
Well over, and trade for 3 months and they're closed.
So is that, again, there's got to be so many factors. There can't just be one thing, right? No. That's just a combination of probably poor planning, lack of knowledge of the industry potentially. You just don't know. Like timing obviously is everything.
And mate, cook for the people. Don't do it for yourself. Because the amount of times I hear the whole, I'm going to open a super top-end wine bar that only sells charcuterie and cheese, and we're going to sell all Burgundy by the glass. We're not going to sell any Australian wines. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, you're going to be fucked, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because how many times have you and your wife in the past month go, I feel like going out for a $40 glass of Chablis and a charcuterie board at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night?
Yeah. There's.
And you're the market.
Tumbleweeds.
Me too. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
It's funny. I've had people over the last 5 years, not every, but there's so many times we said, oh, you should open a wine bar somewhere. And it's like, it's always Coolum.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just don't know if the population base is there. So there's the thing for me is I always look at, obviously site's critical, number one really for anything. And then it's that next step is like, is there enough people here to populate the restaurant? And the answer is just no.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, it's a very quick conversation. Like you said, if the math isn't there, just walk away.
Yeah.
That idea of a 10-year plan.
I would just start with the lease, mate, and go.
So work back. Could be a 5 + 5 or whatever.
And then if I always use 8% of the turnover. So I always go for
as
rent.
What?
Well,
for rent?
Minimum. So yeah. So if again, round numbers, if you sign a lease and it's,
someone giving us some advice via text.
If the rent is $100,000 a year, I always go 8% of the turnover.
Okay.
Even less than 10, so 8%. Give yourself a little bit of wriggle room.
Sure.
Now, if you can't see that restaurant doing that turnover, do not sign that lease.
Yeah. And people sort of go, how do you work that out? It's like pretty straightforward. If it's got to make $1 million a year, you've got to do 20 grand a week. How are you going to generate 20 grand a week? Where does that come from?
Break it even down even more. Go, okay, 7 days. 20 grand divided by 7, then divided by 2 if you got 2 services, then divided by an hour and go, can I do that? Because I did this with a friend of mine who's looking at opening a sushi bar.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, it's a great site. It's $100,000 a year in rent. And I'm like, oh shit. He goes, oh, but it's right next to a supermarket and it's going to be really busy. I'm like, okay. I've never been in the sushi business before. What's the rent? We did that all the way down to
how many sushi?
How many serves of sushi do you need to sell per hour? And he went, it's fucking impossible. I'm like, well, you've answered your question.
Exactly.
And you're welcome, because now I've just saved your fucking house.
Exactly right. So I'll just take half of that. But it's funny. I mean, I remember doing that 26 years ago, talking about muffins. How many muffins and coffees can we sell in a day?
Yep.
And is that going to work? And it's like, yes, it is. And it's like, okay, well then this makes sense. So it's like, if we can sell X amount of muffins, then you just go from there. It's like, what's your core product? Work it back. Can you sell enough in an hour, in a day, in a week, in a month? Yes, it's going to make money at the end of the year. Or yes, we're going to have revenue. Then the costs come into it. It's like, okay, well, let's work everything out the other way. What's it all going to cost to do?
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of people do, again, the romancing. They get caught up in we're going to own a restaurant and we're not going to work in it. We're going to get someone to work in it. So, those conversations are something that generally need to be had as well. It's a lot harder when you've got someone in there managing your business, because your top expense then is going to be wages, because you're not paying yourself, or you shouldn't be.
There'd be very, very few food-related businesses now that their biggest expense isn't labour.
Yeah, and by a long way.
by a long way.
Yeah, and I love the fact that when you get to a point where this conversation, I think, who was that with? Someone recently, where it's like, oh, congratulations, you're employing people, and this is great, business is going well. So now we're just going to charge you an extra little bit of payroll tax because you're employing so many people that we want to take another chop out of that.
Well, I was speaking to a guy a couple of weeks ago who's opening a beverage-based business, and we were talking about it, and I said, "Oh, right, you've done all your maths on it, right?" Because I just struggled to grasp the concept. And he goes, "Yeah, I've done it." I said, "What about your labour?" "Oh, very minimal labour, minimal labour." I said, "Oh, how many people?" He goes, "Oh, 3 or 4." I'm like, "Okay." And then he gave me the because I said, "What's that look like as a dollar value?" Because I'm just trying to think about what type of revenue he needs to do.
Yeah.
And he told me the number. And I said, "Oh, plus 21%."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, that's it." I said, 21% covers your work cover, superannuation, holiday pay, sick pay.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "You haven't worked that out.
It's not 100 grand. It's 120 grand.
That's a fucking lot, isn't it? An additional 20%.
Yeah. So how do people know? Like, if they don't know, are they just never going to know? I mean,
You shouldn't be opening a business if you don't know. That's the reality of it, unfortunately. It's like I'm not going to go and open a law firm because I don't know the law.
Yeah.
So it's just the food game, unfortunately. Food and beverage is such a romantic area that people can get lost up in it. They don't realise that it's not like an easy out if it fails. It can really hammer you.
Yeah.
But what about you? I mean, you are deeply entrenched in the beverage game. I have never seen it fucking harder in that at the moment. Everything's going up.
Yeah.
Like, even from a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah.
Oh, like, fuck.
Everything.
And it feels like the government's just trying to make it harder.
Excise is probably the big one. For those that don't know, the government takes a significant portion of tax out of everything that in the beverage industry. In wine, we have the wine equalisation tax, which is a tax which was brought in to replace the wholesale sales tax.
How much is that?
29%. So basically, every bottle of wine in this country has 29% added on, and then
so for $20 bottle of wine.
Yep.
How much tax is going to the government?
$6 roughly. Yeah. So it's and
the restaurants would be lucky to make $6 on that $20 bottle of wine.
Totally, absolutely.
People don't realise that, but
no, and that's when people go, "Oh my god, Europe, it was so cheap. I was buying XYZ for €20, and here it's $70, $80." And
I was buying Costa Azul in America for like $60 a bottle.
Yeah, no one needs to hear that. For those that don't know, Class Azul is a tequila that Instagram lovers love, and fancy blue and white bottle that looks amazing.
A little bell on top.
Yeah, it's great fun, but it's here retail is probably close to $400 now.
Shit.
So, I think the tax implications. In the spirit industry, you've got $106 a litre now. So basically, every single bottle that you have, $106 per litre of that spirit goes to the government. So that's the second that it leaves the warehouse.
So if you're selling again a $50 bottle of booze,
yeah,
how much is going to the government?
Depending on the alcohol content, could be anywhere between $15, $20 on that plus GST.
To nearly half.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's more, and that's what I see these things online now. You see these ads of small distilleries that are doing 3 bottles of gin for $99, 500 bottles of gin. It's like there's $26 worth of excise in every single bottle. So it's like, how can they do that for $99?
Clearly, they're trying to move their stock as they're
Of course, exactly right, and that's people have been deferring tax payments during COVID, and now all of a sudden
everything's coming home to roost.
Coming home to roost. So that's kind of been an issue, but it's tough. I was talking to a wine wholesaler last week or the week before. He's saying he's never seen it this hard because they don't want to risk bad debt either. So they're not sort of going as hard as they would maybe at the smaller restaurants, which don't have the big revenue, so aren't necessarily paying their bills in time. He's got money in the 90, 120, 150 day category. It's like, holy shit. So basically, people are buying wine, not paying for it for 5 months. How does he then pay his suppliers? So he's looking at remodeling his entire business. A lot of the bigger wholesale companies in Australia, they've pushed back against the wineries as well. So now the wineries are giving it to them on consignment, and they're only paying for it when it gets sold. So, again, there's only certain size people that can do this, wineries-wise. Small wineries can't afford that.
they've paid for everything in
Up
advance
until
of
that point,
winery. Like,
exactly.
I find the whole wine game fascinating,
Yeah.
and how you can even make money out
It's
of it.
nuts how much capital expenditure
Like,
needs
you'd
to
be
be
in
made
the
first and foremost.
you are in the can for millions of dollars
Absolutely.
before you even get $1 back.
Absolutely. And that's, and it also, you're growing a plant. The number one, you're a farmer first and foremost. So if it rains, you're screwed. If it hails, you're screwed. If it's hot, you're screwed. So it's like, what do you do? There's all these risks involved there. Again, there's the romance. So it's like, but
Yeah.
we might be able to produce something
Yeah, have
pretty
you seen
cool
the
as well.
henchkeys, or have you seen the
And that's the thing, is
the
like,
great wine houses of Australia? But they just market themselves and benchmark themselves against these unicorns that don't exist.
and that's the challenge when you're a little producer. It's like, think about all the steps. Yeah, you want to be that aspirational brand, but that's going to take 10 years, 20 years, 50 years even. It's like, are you ready for that kind of an investment? So, but yeah, it's tough in booze. The other thing with wholesalers is, they're getting delays in shipping. The Suez Canal shuts down, and all of a sudden things take 3 extra months to get here. If you're running a restaurant and you've got a certain wine on the wine list, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we can't get it to you for 3 months," what do you think happens?
Yeah.
That comes off,
Yeah.
and it doesn't go back on.
Now, if you're a wholesaler, you're buying that wine and paying for it in advance as well.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
you're in the can for
and it's
tens of thousands of dollars,
and it's
floating
just
around in the
floating around the Cape of Good Hope trying to get here.
fuck you, Suez Canal.
It's just
that prick who bogged that boat on that Suez. Can you remember that? Imagine being a wine host. But also a lot of like perishable cheese and stuff comes through there
there's
as well.
Heaps of stuff that comes through there, like
such a disaster.
packaging. Like, there's so many things, and it's like those kind of delays, they can have a massive impact. But particularly when it's cash flow. So for those smaller wholesalers, if they're importing direct, it's like, if they're missing a case for a shipment for a month, it's like, that's huge impact. And then it's, because they're still carrying the wages for the salespeople that have to sell it, as well. So it's like there's this it just flows down. So yeah, look, it's really tough. Again, I think that people are, trying to fish where the fish are, and there's only so many fish.
Yeah.
So you've got 50 wine companies, mate. I don't know how many are in Australia now, wholesale wise. There's a shit ton. It's a lot more than 50. All vying for the same business, and so they're going hard. The deals are still being done. There's still money being thrown around by the big guys, champagne houses and things like that. But
I wonder if is there a glutton of booze at the moment in Australia? Because I've seen a couple of red hot specials come through for top end booze.
Yeah.
That you're talking $40 or $50 a bottle off.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
I mean, the wine glut's been talked about a lot, particularly recently, because the trade restrictions that China put on, and everyone went so hard, not everyone, but certain people went really, really hard into China, and all of a sudden that tap got turned off. So that's definitely had an impact on people. There's juice around, there's no doubt about it. But again, where's it going? Because people can't sell it. There's only so many people drinking wine. So it's tough. But gluts have happened before. This is not new.
But it's the usual suspects in the Australian wine game are still, like, our allocations have never been lower. So where's all that wine going?
In terms of imports or Aussie?
No, Aussie stuff.
I think there's a combination of things as well, whether you've got some vintages that were leaner. Yep. So, you don't have big volumes of these wines that there is not big volumes of to start with. There is, at the pointy end of wine, there's still people buying plenty. Again, it's that same thing. We've got this dichotomy. You've got people buying the sort of $6 bottles at one of the big box chains, a box of wine for $60 or whatever it is. And then you've got people who will pay overs for Great Burgundy, Great Barolo.
Because just looking up here, like when we sat down and seen the by far Gamay, pre-COVID, as much as you wanted, you could buy of that.
Yeah.
Now we've got an allocation of 2 6-packs.
And I think that's the wine is fantastic. It is a tiny, tiny production. So people,
is it because there's less of that wine, or more people drinking it?
I think both. It's probably more people wanting it. And there's sort of those kind of cult producers like that, where there's a lot more press. There's people are talking about it more. There's forums. Everyone knows everything about wine. So there's lots of people talking about it, and brands like Far's a good example where people want it. Like, they'll just see it and buy it.
Yeah. What's that worth? A bottle, cost?
The Gamay now is probably into the 40s, I think.
It's not a cheap bottle of wine.
No, not at all.
That's what the thing that surprises me.
Yeah. And that's, if you look at just sort of trends across the market, the things that are doing well are generally at the higher end. I mean, you're not going to sell 100 bottles of that a week, but you will sell it easily. And for me, that's the greatest wine on a wine list, is one where I don't have to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
They just come in and go, I'll take that. Thanks very much. So it's like, great, job done, move on to the next customer.
It just means that you're looking at your customer and what they're...
Absolutely. So it's about having those products. You've got to have them first and foremost for certain restaurants. You know, not everyone has to have by far game on.
You just need to know
your market. Exactly right. So do I think I can sell this? Yes. You know, and that's when, I mean, certainly for me, if I'm buying any wine, it's like, do we have the customer for this? Yes, we do. In that venue, do they have the customer for that? Yes, they do. So yes, it can go there, but maybe it doesn't go there.
Yeah.
So again, it's just sniper rifle sort of stuff.
And you often give the advice that look at it from your customer's point of view, not yours. Because
100%.
The thing that I say constantly, 5 times a day, is cook for the people.
Yeah.
Don't cook for you.
Absolutely. It's not about me.
We put fish and chips on at Market Bistro, much to Juzzy's disgust.
How many thousand fish and chips has he done?
He's hating himself.
Yeah,
right
no
now.
kidding.
But I said to him, mate, when you get your revenue journal at the end of the week and you see what that's doing to your food cost and the increased sales, because people are like, oh my God, have you had the fish and chips at Market? And they go, I like fish and chips at a fish and chip shop. Imagine what it's going to be like here.
And that's that slight elevation of something that people are familiar with.
Like using fresh local caught sweet lip.
Yeah.
Or pearl perch.
Yeah.
And instead of having a jarred tartare sauce, you're doing grabish.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is off its head.
Yeah, I bet.
But Justin feels, I can see it in his face, he feels as though he's been kicked in the bollocks a bit by it, because he's far greater than fish and chips. But I'm like, you're the sensible human being that's giving the customer what they want.
Yeah.
Now,
the fish and chips are probably going to pay for your wages.
Not any human being is asked how much they are, because they don't care.
No.
Because they just want... I said to him, but if you're going to charge what you need to, because pearl perch and sweet lip aren't cheap.
Yeah.
But if you charge whatever you need to charge and it's good, then they'll come back and they will hunt that fish and chips down.
Absolutely.
It'll become their new favourite thing.
Absolutely.
Over the weekend, they were just flying out the door.
Yeah.
But great batter, great fish, great price.
Yeah.
You know,
so it's not one thing. Again, it's like you've got to. It's easy enough to say we're just going to do fish and chips, but like can we get the good fish? Where do we get that from? Who are we getting it from? How much does it cost?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, then it's good batter, then it's good sauce. It's all those kind of things.
He's not putting compressed veal tongue on the menu, because
that's good. He
doesn't. The market's not there. But there's a lot of chefs out there. You've probably worked with heaps of them who want to put the compressed veal tongue on because he's seen it in a book, and that's very chefy. And I get to use my tweezers, and it's 9 steps to get a small piece of protein that's got the same texture as a fucking chuck sloth. Why is it not selling?
But do you think there's a time and a place for that kind of food as well?
The market will tell you if there is.
Yeah.
But you can go and open a place and sell that now. I'm just not sure you're going to sell very much of it.
How many are you going to sell? But that's the thing. There is, you've got small restaurants, like degustation restaurants, that do okay because it's like that's their thing. But they've also only got 12 seats to fill or 20 seats to fill.
Or a pure seafood restaurant that doesn't have any other protein. Like, if there's, like, I just don't know that that market's strong enough here.
Yeah.
I would suggest, if you want the safe play, just open a restaurant and have a good eclectic mix of food on the menu.
Yeah.
Concentrate on analysing the data. The data won't lie. If people are chasing more seafood, then add a dish.
And add it on,
Swap it out. Do a special. And then slowly but surely, the market will tell you exactly what they want.
How do you ask? I mean, it's simple saying, the market will tell you, I suppose. But how do you talk? Like, do you get the staff, do you get your team to talk to people and go, what do you want?
We got a new menu change. What do you think of it? What would you like to see on there?
Yeah.
Or before we do a menu change, say that.
Yeah.
If you've got a regular customer that's coming to the restaurant 2 or 3 times a week and you ask them their opinion, they're going to feel like a rock star.
Like, what do you want to see on here? Or,
Is there anything you'd love to see on the menu we haven't had on here before?
Has there anyone ever said anything you're like, holy shit,
fish and chips?
Yeah, right.
Like, because I hate talking about the Stokehouse all the time, but it was such a pivotal moment in my career because it was a 2-hat restaurant that served fish and chips. And people always say, what was the biggest selling dish on the menu? Fish and chips was. Not by a little bit, by fucking a lot.
Yeah, right.
Now, some people would think that it's a bit of a piss take or a kick in the bollocks that you're selling fish and chips in such a beautiful restaurant, but we fucking gave the people what they wanted. And we just wanted to do the best fish and
Do it
chips
well,
on
yeah.
earth, and we did. So we sold heaps of them.
Yeah.
And people never once asked about the price. Not once ever. And I think it was $50.
Yeah. For fish and chips.
Just good fish and chips. It's what it costs.
I want to be.
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with someone. What was it about? It was about fish and chips, and it was the fact that this venue that they went to, it was like, let's say $35 for fish, but then you had to add on everything else. So basically, it was you went there thinking, oh, it's $35 for fish and chips. Like, no, it's $35 for fish.
Yeah.
Then it's $12 for chips. Then it's $6 for a sauce.
Yeah.
And so by the end of it, you're walking out going, that fish and chips just cost me $55. And it's like, hang on.
Yeah, I'm really careful not to be deceptive because you got to think about tomorrow's money. So I don't want you once, I want you 3 times.
Yeah.
So if you get them once, you may not get them again. It's like that gotcha moment. That's such bad business.
Yeah.
It's like the wine game, mate. How many people do you know that've been tricked into a bottle of wine and then suddenly there's a shit fight and you'll never get them back? It's not worth it. Think about tomorrow's money. Yeah. That's what I always say.
It's easy to get one big sale once.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to keep them there coming back at once a week.
And if I get you 3 times, I reckon I've got you for life.
Yeah.
If I don't be a fuckhead.
Yeah, something doesn't.
Yeah, something. But it's funny because the market, if you are busy and then you are quiet and we use great reservation tools. Open Table can tell you just how many times people come back, repeat customers. If you look at data like that, it'll tell you if you've got your menu right.
Yeah.
We fucked the menu at market. I think you may have even been there. Dobbers was there. We did a menu change.
Took a couple of the big sellers off. Or...
Oh yeah, we moved tortellini off. We moved tiramisu off. We moved a bunch of it was a significant menu change. I was a bit nervous about it, but the menu looked really good. Dobbers did a terrific job. The food was fucking yum. People didn't like it. They stopped. Like, do you want to talk about shanking it? Like, within 2 weeks, we'd lost 18% of our customers.
And it was purely from the menu change.
They came in. People were literally going, "Oh, where's the tortellini? Or where's this? Or where's that?" And then they'd eat, and that was it. They were twice a week customer.
Yeah.
So we again hate this word, pivoted really quickly and tweaked the menu back to a resemblance of what it was, and we got them back. But
that's an expensive exercise as well. Like in terms
really
of
expensive.
Changing a full menu is a lot.
But we learnt a very valuable lesson there, that's for sure.
Which is listen.
Yeah, just listen to what they want.
Yeah.
But we were cooking for ourselves. Dobbers wanted to prove a point that he was a magnificent chef. He didn't need to prove that. And I wanted to back him. The food looked great, but I think we just bit off more than what we could chew. But we were just really fortunate it didn't hurt us too bad.
Yeah. But again, caught it quickly.
Yeah.
So this idea of like weekly reporting, can that work in a suburban restaurant? In a
definitely.
Tiny place with just, it's just,
it makes it way easier.
A couple operating a business or someone operating a business on their own.
15 minutes, mate, in front of your point of sale. That's all it is. If you do that, and I liken it to you're checking your blood pressure every day.
Yep.
Not at the end of the month. Yeah. Because at the end of the month, once you do a stock take, and it's amazing how many businesses, small, medium, or large,
stock take.
Don't stock take.
Why? I know. I mean, why should people do a stock take? And I know venues that just don't do them at all, or do them maybe once every 6 months, or maybe once a year.
Would you like to know if your business is making money?
How do you tell?
You can't tell unless you do a stock take.
Well, exactly. And I think it's also that idea of counting what you've got is important, but knowing why there's a difference between what you've got and what you should have.
Yeah.
So if you're not using a decrementing point of sale, so something that's linked to stock control, then you have no idea where you're at, right? It's going to be, you're going to have a rough idea, but again, those 1% here and there can make the difference between making money and closing the doors.
Yeah, and you've got to make decisions based on
hard data. Yeah,
data, mate. Yeah. That's all. And I think by having a look at that, call it a revenue journal, call it whatever you want. Top line revenue, how's that split between food and beverage?
Yeah.
Then purchases for food, purchases for sale, divided into your revenue.
Yeah.
And just have a bit of a look. And I don't know, every business is different, but we've always worked on 30% cost of goods for food and booze. So if you're in and around that, but you should do a budget. just because the budget shouldn't be easy to get. It shouldn't be easy to hit.
Yeah.
A budget should be something you've got to work for.
Do you mean like a revenue budget?
Yeah.
This is what we want to aim for.
Just do a mock P&L up and go, this is what I want my business to look like for this financial year.
Yeah.
And make it challenging.
Yeah.
So then you've got to think about, I want to do a special. We want to drive the revenue
How do I
because
get that to the number?
our revenue's got to go up by 10% next month, and make it a bit of a challenge, especially if you're a business owner and you're not working hands-on in the business on a day-to-day basis on the tools, then you've got more time to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're an owner-operator where you're in there working on the floor, behind the bar, in the kitchen, you're going to have to. This is hard, but bring your team in and make it a challenge, make it fun.
Yeah.
Don't.
How does someone do that?
Mate, but just simply going, well, if our business turned over $1 million this year, do you think we sit around a round table over a coffee in the morning and go, we're going to do a planning and budget meeting for next year, and then go, do you think we've got it in us to do an additional $150,000?
Yep.
Now this is what it looks like.
How do we break that down?
Yeah, we're going to need to do an additional
$3,000 a week.
$3,000 a week. So can we do it? So that's this much additional each service. Can we sell another bottle of water? Can we sell another piece of bread? Can we sell, and if you can put some strategy into it, and then even to the point where when you run your books at the end of the month and you want to run a proper profit and loss statement, we set ourselves a caveat of 10 days after the end of month, I need a proper full P&L.
Yep.
Now, when I get that P&L this next year, we're going to have last year's budget, the one that we're setting, and the actual. So we've got 3 different columns of data there that we can look at and go, fuck, last year we were in a much better position, or we might go, we're killing it. Look at where we are now compared to last year, and we're not even close to our budget. So, that data it's such a driver of all of our business,
But it shapes you as well, right? Because then, like you said, it's like, we've got to get an extra, let's say, $3,000 a week. How are we going to do that? Who's going to do that? Who's responsible for doing that on a week-to-week basis? That's the kind of stuff where some people love that stuff.
Yep.
Like I've had plenty of people I've worked with over a long period of time that love. It's just the thrill of the chase almost.
Yeah.
It's that salesy thing that's like, all right, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get that.
Well, mate, we see it in our business. So if we have our food costs in our revenue journal as high for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the month, and we know we've only got 1 week left, and the revenue journals each week have said 31%, 32%, 32%, the chef will go, we're not spending
buying
anything additional this week. What's in the fridge? What's in the freezer that we can use up? We're doing specials. We're emptying this joint dry.
Yeah.
So then, on the 4th week of the month, if our food purchases are down really low, if we do a 20% cost of goods for that week, I know just by looking at that revenue journal, when that P&L, the actual P&L comes out, the food cost is going to be.
It's going to be okay. So it balances out.
But you're fighting for that. But how do you know that unless you got that data?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of restaurants that just go, the freezer's full of shit, the dry store's full of shit.
Get rid of it.
That's right. I mean, I can run a special. If I put a special pasta on at Market Bistro or Boca today of fresh linguine made with eggs from my chickens, with garlic, chili, parsley, extra virgin olive oil, and pecorino cheese, I'll sell 10 entrees, probably 15 main courses.
Yeah.
There's no protein in it.
Yeah.
That would be one of those things that I know that Harry would do just because he's the tightest motherfucker you've ever seen in your life. But at the end of the month, if he needs to do that, he'll make that pasta and he'll sell 50 serves of it.
Yeah.
And then he'll go, I told you not to worry about the food cost.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the only reason he knew how to do that was looking at that data.
Exactly. But also that's a skill that people acquire over time. Like a lot of chefs don't just come in and get that straight away. I mean, there's plenty of chefs that I've worked with, I'm sure you're the same, that have no idea about food costs, really.
They're just creative.
They're really good at making food. It's like, what did it cost? It's like, I don't know, it's just pasta $1 or something. It's like, it's actually $6, mate, because of you used duck eggs and you've used this and you've used that. So is
imagine
something
if
is a skill set.
If you went into your chef who's clueless about, and there's a lot of people out there that are. There's a lot of chefs that don't even know how to turn a computer on. But if you own that business and you go to your chef and say, do not spend, I want you to look at every single invoice that comes in this week and hand it to me when it comes in. I'm going to keep a running tally. You've got a maximum of $3,000 you can spend on food this week, and we need to run specials based on what is already here.
Yeah.
You're giving the chef the data. He doesn't need to do anything apart from be creative.
Yeah.
And run with that.
Yeah.
The chef will never thank you more than that.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to be sitting in front of a computer.
No.
So that data doesn't need to definitely come from the chef. It can come from anybody. But if the chef or the bartender have got that data,
Yeah.
that's gold.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, your mic's just swung. One of the things that's sort of popping up a bit in the media these days as well, again, there's a lot of talk about restaurants closing, and then the next thing is, but then we're charging, like there was one last week, I think, where someone got charged $1 to heat a muffin up and like blew up deluxe. And it's like, well, but I look at that and go, that's just dumb in terms of putting $1 on to charge the muffin. Just charge more for the muffin.
Just charge 20 cents more and
You know,
spread it across 10
whatever
sales.
it may be.
Like, it's just so stupid.
And then the next thing is, everyone's getting upset about surcharges. So I don't know, this is close to your heart. So the Sunday surcharge, the Saturday surcharge coming in, not so much here. I haven't seen a Saturday here yet. I've seen Sundays, definitely. Public holidays we're all generally aware of, that when you go out.
You've been working casually, right?
Right.
Would you be okay if I didn't give you Sunday rates or Saturday rates?
No.
What?
Well, I'm entitled to that under the award.
I have no issue with people charging a surcharge on Saturday and Sunday if they want to do it
to cover it. Is it? But I look at it like this, and it's like, if you weren't aware, it's the same thing. This is not a surprise that the Sunday is going to cost more. So, is it why we're seeing a lot of venues closing now on Sundays?
Yeah,
that it's guys like, it's just not worth it. Like,
you can't
$60 an hour for a barista.
Keep putting labour up.
Yeah,
and not
expect not to change.
Piece, yeah. If you cannot piece that together and make sure that your menu increases in price, and you think my customers won't come back, they might not, but you'll be fucked either way, because if you don't react to those prices going up,
yeah, you're basically giving it away.
You're just gonna. Who in their right mind wants to run the risk and the stress of opening a business and not make any money out of it? I'd rather go and get a job.
Yeah.
We don't charge a Saturday or a Sunday surcharge, but I'm fucking thinking about it.
Yeah.
We certainly charge a public holiday rate, and we get hammered for that as well. But I make a point, every single time there's a public holiday, we get inundated with text messages through social media saying, do you sell a surcharge? Do you charge a surcharge? I'm like, the comment is exactly the same every single time. It's, yes, we absolutely do, to cover the price of the time and a half, double time and a half for public holidays.
And that's the thing. It's like, that's
straight to our stuff.
That's not your choice. Well, I'll rephrase that. The cost of labour on a Sunday or a Saturday, for that matter, is not your choice.
No.
It's mandated by the award. So you have to pay that if you want to have people on.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if we come back purely to math, and I mean, it's all really good and well to have this conversation between us that understand it, but do the public need to understand? And for some reason, I think they just don't get it. It's just like, well, hang on, it's the same thing as you just said. The costs have gone up, so we need to charge more.
Mate, I get so passionate about the labour thing, only because I've got to really make sure that I don't make this a political thing, because I don't want to. But if you think for 1 second that these pay rates are anything other than a cash grab by the government,
as in for votes or
and money, who makes the most money out of the minimum wage going up?
Yeah,
the government makes more tax on that money without saying we're increasing taxes.
Yeah.
How can you increase taxes without increasing taxes?
Yeah.
Fucking raise the bottom line of the entry level wages.
Yeah. Because then that flows on to everyone as well. And it's not like it's just the bottom tier. That's what I think a lot of people don't understand, that it's not just the people on the lowest income.
No.
It's all the way through an award. It's going to have an impact.
I am shocked at the amount of people in hospitality now that I speak to who may be in trouble, maybe just not in trouble, looking to expand, and they tell me how they've got this great chef who's, we managed to secure him on $55,000 a year. I'm like, that's against the law. We can't have a qualified chef in the kitchen for less than 62 or 64,000 now.
Yeah.
Now we use AWX Tribe for all of our HR and payroll, just to make sure that we are 100% paying by the book.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Do you think you are the exception?
Oh, without doubt.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's I don't think that's deliberate. I don't think people. There's definitely people out there that do the wrong thing, right? But I think the lion's share of it, like the whole, when George got hammered, Adriano got hammered, Justin Hems got hammered, all these big guys, that comes from a place of ignorance. It doesn't come from a place of I don't believe it's malicious at all. I think that we have staff all the time that want to do more. My son is one of them that want to come in and learn, and they know that they're on a set roster, so they come in early. And I don't know all of these circumstances, but I challenge any single person that's got a passionate view on one of these big guys who's been slammed in the media for wage theft.
Yep.
Just take 15 minutes and have a look at the hospitality award.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Just make it easier to understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it is so ridiculous. It's not funny.
And I mean, that's not a joke. It's actually worthwhile if you haven't looked at the award
before you say that somebody's wage stealing, and it's not an excuse. They need to get it right. That's why we've invested so much time and money in this. And you know, the cost that we have to pay Tribe to make sure that we are compliant is huge.
Yeah.
Like, it's 4% of our total revenue.
Yeah.
But before we make a decision, we make a phone call to the person who manages all of our accounts, and they do what's called a boot test.
Yeah.
So to make sure that the staff are always better off at any decision we make.
Right. Because
we use that as the pinnacle. So if we're not jeopardising the house of cards.
And I think that...
And we don't want to rip anybody off.
No, I was going to say, I think most people go into this as like, we're not trying to do this on purpose, but things get missed. People do different things in terms of... and chefs have always notoriously worked ridiculously long hours, and that's not necessarily right. But it's also not necessarily wrong if they want to be there. But now you almost can't be there as well. So it's
and it's a bit of it's a piss take of these guys that don't want to negotiate their pay well enough, and then after the fact want to complain about it as well. Like, I look at some of these forums and they go, "Oh, $80,000 for a head chef, that's ridiculous," and they want to smash them over that. There's a lot of chefs out there that are happy to take 80 grand to be a head chef. Who probably be their biggest payday ever.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of chefs out there that won't work for less than 150. What's worse? One just knows how to negotiate and knows what their value is worth, and has probably invested a shitload of time, effort, and energy in educating himself in their craft. Then there's another guy who may or may not have worked in some really basic places, who's got basic level of understanding, who just wants to make a decent living. And 80 grand a year is a decent living.
Yeah.
Who's right or who's wrong? No one's better off. But don't slam the business who wants to pay somebody 80 grand, because I know that some of our businesses, like Udlo General Store, you can't get paid 150 and work in that, or else you have to be making coffees, running food, doing dishes.
And you can't do that. The commercial reality is there.
Yeah.
I've worked in venues before where it's so top heavy, and also, I remember one in particular. I walked in, and I was like looking around the room, this table before we'd even opened. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want this wage bill, and that's not even anyone that can actually do anything. It's just us managers.
Yeah. Sitting in front of a laptop.
Exactly right. And it's like, well, hold on, how's this going to work? And it didn't. Surprise, surprise. But not by fault of trying either, or not trying, I should say. But it was one of those things where it was almost, if there's 10 people around the room and everyone wants 150 grand, it's like, well, hang on a second, what have we got to make here? And again, that math kind of just doesn't make sense.
And it's all got to get tipped on its head. And I think that, and I'm not talking about reducing the labour, like reducing the cost of labour, reducing the pay rates of people.
Yeah.
When I bitch about the hospitality award, I'm just saying make it easier. Do a weekend rate, which covers Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
And a public holiday rate.
Yeah.
Don't do an early morning, mid morning, late morning.
After 6.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Or, I bet not too many people know what a junior is, because there's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yeah.
So you're still a junior when you're 20? I didn't know that until a few years ago.
Yeah.
Just say you're a junior if you're under the age of 18.
Yep. make it easier for people to understand.
And then I sit back and I go, am I that fucking stupid and simple? But I'm like, if we can simplify this, less and less people are going to be affected or ripped off.
Yeah.
And we can just go on about trying to streamline the industry to a stage where it's not completely run by robots.
Yeah.
And how many people, the hospitality industry must employ way more people than just about any other industry, surely.
I think between hotel and accommodation.
Like,
huge,
holy shit.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what that landmine looks like. We've got to get a hotel guy in here very soon, because that is, holy fuck, a different kettle of fish. Because then you're employing engineers, plumbers, gardeners.
Exactly. And there's 12 different awards that you got to be dealing with,
and you got one HR person who's supposed to be across it all. It's impossible. And then they'll get branded a wage thief.
Yeah.
You know, like, do you think Justin Hems from Mirabelle sits down and does his wages with the word REMPED every week?
I wouldn't imagine he.
I'd suggest that there's 5 or 6 people in his HR department all trying to get it right,
Yeah.
all trying to negotiate the best possible rate. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, he's got a big business. If he doesn't negotiate hard, then half the people will fucking be broke.
Yeah.
Like, half these businesses will fold.
Yeah.
So he's out there trying to get the deals done. He's relying on these people in the office to be running off a legislation that they can just understand and get people paid properly. He's not out there trying to cheat the corners, because he doesn't fucking need an additional 100,000, 200,000, $500,000 a year. The guy's minted. So when people brand him a wage thief, I go, it's so ignorant.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think?
I don't know the guy. I don't know the guy. I look at what he does and how he manages it, and I've got respect for him for having a go. That's all.
Do you think there is, and again, this is with the caveat that it's not about not paying people, do you think the tall poppy syndrome comes into this?
For sure.
Yeah. So basically, as soon as someone looks like they're doing okay, everyone gets the shits. And I'm not saying, I mean, obviously, you know, there's been instances, there's no names necessarily involved in this, where people have definitely been screwed over.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
You know, I think at all points in time, we've all worked in this industry long enough to know that people do get
there's
screwed.
bad people out there, mate, in every game.
Exactly. But it seems to be that, you know, we're trying to find the villains here.
When was the last time you seen an accountancy firm sprayed all over the news for wage thieving or not getting paid for their overtime?
Or law firms, or, you know, I mean, I don't know people that worked in law firms, doctors even. I mean, I know they get paid well, but fuck. I mean, I was talking to one recently, and
do you know what a GP gets paid, mate?
It's nothing.
You get paid more than GP.
I don't get paid
That's
at all.
Not hard. You're fucking minted. But no, I'm saying, mate, you'd be really surprised. Like, I'd love to know why that microscope gets thrown straight over hospitality, because
is it because there's that voyeuristic element to hospitality, and, you know, there is the master chef of the world. There's, like, with TV, everything else, these people that were, you know, chefs and restaurateurs are now
master chef story
thrust into the.
This has to be.
We'll come back to that. I think, you know, some of these people have been thrust into the limelight, and therefore the industry is kind of cool to talk about, but that's also cool to take the piss. I mean, I know plenty of people that have been through stuff in hospitality, like big names, and you're just like, well, that's no way. Like, I know that person. There's no way they would have done that.
Yeah.
But because they've got a name, someone jumps on it. So it's like, well, we need to find something. And I think I'm not blaming anyone here, but I think the media do like to go after hospo hard. I would love to see a look at particularly law firms. Young lawyers work their asses off. Then you look at industries like even something like social work, where in a degree you've got to do 1,000 hours of unpaid labour to get a degree. 1,000 hours?
Macca's.
Who can afford that?
As soon as you buy a Macca's, you've got to do a year's free training.
As soon as you buy one?
Yeah. If you want to be a McDonald's owner, and anybody that owns a Macca's and wants to
franchise,
I want to hear about it. But my understanding of it with McDonald's is if you want to buy a franchise of that, you need $1 million in liquid cash in the bank, and you need to do 1 year training in store to understand all the systems in Macca's.
And you pay for that?
It's free. It's free. You have to work for free as in the training model, and it doesn't matter if you're not going to be working in the venue.
If
you own it, you need to know.
Wow.
Or else you don't get the franchise.
Huh.
And there's very few, like minuscule amount of people who only own one McDonald's.
Yeah, a lot of them are like 3 and 4 and 5, right? So, We should get someone on from there. Actually, I do know someone that's.
That'd be an interesting conversation because I reckon they've certainly got it right. It's a magnificent business, unbelievable.
Actually, that's someone we should talk to as well. Is someone who's really across the HR side of this. That'd be a super interesting.
Tom, the owner
Tom,
of Tribe.
Tribe. We should
and
get
he and how he listed it.
Yeah, they listed AWX.
It got listed years ago.
Did it?
Yeah.
Right. It is interesting. I think we've touched on some of the things today. It's like I want to look at more at that kind of thing. I think that HR side of hospitality is.
I got a call on Friday from the Office of State Revenue wanting to know why I haven't paid payroll tax.
Because
Tribe pays it.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the Tribe pay it. So.
Yeah, but we lodged a tax return and then they've gone $30 million and you're not paying $30 million a year in turnover and you don't pay payroll tax. How many staff do you have?
4.
I don't even have that.
I have 2. I was going to say it's 2.
I don't even have that. But when they ring you up and you were wondering what that high-pitched whistle was on the Sunshine Coast at Friday at about 9:30, it was my arsehole going. Keep cut that.
Yeah, let's maybe not put that in. Yeah, and that's definitely a model that not a lot of people probably are aware of, or that gets used very heavily in this industry.
The problem is, and I say this to anybody who asks me about Tribe, is if you don't have to pay payroll tax, it's questionable whether or not it's worth it. From a compliance perspective, it certainly is. But if you don't have to pay payroll tax, then you have to pay it when you sign up for Tribe.
It's like but with, just so we're again covering payroll tax, it's 4%, is it? Over $1 million in turnover or something like that?
It's just changed.
$1 million in invoice, as in staff costs. Can't speak English. I think it is, but either way, it's a shit ton of money.
It is.
On top of everything else. So, and that's what we're talking about, these low margins already. If you're already operating on a single figure margin, let's say you're operating on 8%, and then of your gross revenue, that's your net profit. And then you sit there and go, right, we're going to take 4% of your total wage bill and charge you more of that. That could be another 1% gone.
Although there isn't a national standard rate for payroll tax in Australia, the general range hovers between 4.75% and 6.85%, depending on specific state or territory. There's a snapshot of what the current rates are as of 2023. New South Wales is 5.45, Victoria 4.85. Queensland's more than that. So it's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's probably the most insidious tax because you're penalising any employer who wants to employ people. And that is one of the key drivers. I know we keep talking about AI and robotics, but that is the key driver of why that industry is going to go mental. And the hospitality industry will be decimated by that. What are the things that are going to be done by, hypothetically, done by robots or AI? What are the things, where are the jobs going to go? McDonald's, mate.
Right.
Like what we seen in Japan. There's a McDonald's in Japan, Japanese airport that we went to. I don't know which one it was. There was one person at the front wiping tables. The rest of it was all done by machine.
I guarantee you there'll be some sort of political move to charge tax using robots.
It has to be.
There'll be like a robot service.
Can you imagine if the government lost payroll tax, just tax in general?
Yeah.
From
GST,
yeah. So PAYG,
yeah.
Work cover, all this shit, all this money that gets pool of money, it's going to go, just gone because.
The thing is historically, when a government loses it, they'll find somewhere else. Like Corey just said, you'll be paying a tax on to use a robot to flip a burger. There'll be a 43% tax on that because it's not employing someone. It's like, well, hang on a second.
But then it will be what do you class as a robot? Because a printer's a robot.
God,
this is a robot. So it's going to be, we're in a really, like I look at the hospitality industry obviously because that's my trade. But what about schools? I reckon the schooling system in Australia or the world will get tipped on its head in the next half a dozen years because it's changing so fast.
I saw something the other day and it was a video. It was one of those classic TikTok make you cry kind of situations of someone, auditioning for something on some show. But this young girl was singing on this show and I think she was highly autistic and had a few other issues going on. She's blind. actually as well. That's right. And they said to her, "What's your dream?" And her response was, "I want to build schools that teach children about things they're curious about."
Wow.
And it's like, fuck, there's the education system right there. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Well, imagine a school that teaches.
I really like building. All right, we're going to teach you all about engineering over here, and this is what that looks like.
Imagine a school that teaches a kid how to change a tyre on a car or lodge a tax return rather than algebra.
So robot teachers?
Well, why wouldn't you do that?
I mean, it's like you just put them on YouTube. They're going to learn everything on there almost, unfortunately. But
I know.
Or for better or worse, not necessarily unfortunately. Yeah, I was going to say, is it fortunately? But I also think then it's learning at their own pace and those kind of things as well. Not everyone's built for the school system. I think a lot of people are not.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Fuck, it's frightening when you think about that, though. That
I know.
I mean,
we're going to, I reckon, in the next 10 years, we're going to run this very fine line of what is reality and what is not.
Yeah, well, how do you tell the difference now with these photos and video now that you're like, none of that's real?
Chat parrot.
No, we don't need that. We don't need to put that
Joe
in.
Rogan
Maybe we
said something about it.
Can we put that in there? Yeah, we'll edit it in. Yeah, or the bit where Joe Rogan talks very very kindly about us.
Yeah, old Joe had
and
so did President Trump.
We might try and edit that in if we can. Put it in here.
Just see if I texted you guys.
Yeah. It's a fair way back. The other thing, what was the other thing?
Tony, Kelly, Peter, and Corey have done an amazing job with it. All things hospitality and business. These guys are genius. Make sure you give it a listen.
Thanks, Joe. It's Joe Rogan, not the official Joe Rogan.
I'm sure that there'll be a website
commenting. Yeah, I'll let. I think that it definitely will. The other thing, I suppose, is this idea, like we're saying about watching everything really really closely, and like if you've got a venue and you're like you're in the shit, you're in the shit, and then you got to work out how to get out of it. So there's. I suppose, I have come across this a bit in the past, where there's two ways to look at it. It's like, okay, I was having a conversation with a venue recently. Wednesday nights are pretty slow for them, so it's like, what do we do? And the first sort of knee-jerk reaction is close by the venue. It's like, we should just close on Wednesdays. And I was like, okay, how about we increase revenue on a Wednesday night and have a look at it that way? So there's always this double-edged...
offensive.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's not necessarily saying one's better than the other, but I'd sure as shit prefer to get more people in.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't become a problem anymore. So if you've got more revenue, it doesn't become a problem. But I think it's important to also recognise that could be the right solution in terms of closing.
Yeah.
And people need to, again, look at the data. One of the things in venues for me that's really important is that hourly sales.
Yeah.
People are like, we go pretty quiet after 9, and it's like, do you though? And you look at the numbers, and it's like, no, we're actually really busy between 9 and 10.
Yeah.
And then it tails off. Or it's also that's just when people are paying their bills.
Yeah.
So the system kind of doesn't necessarily see it as accurate data because the sale happens when they're at the table.
But you also got to understand, if Wednesday's really quiet, I would never suggest trading Monday, Tuesday, close Wednesday, open Thursday, Friday. Human beings are very simple people. I believe that if you closed on Monday, you would create demand for Wednesday.
Later in the week. Yeah.
Because people need that, I believe, and this is just I'm not the messiah, but they need that simple strategy. If you're going to shut, I would always shut earlier in the week, or even shut on Sunday when all of the rates are more expensive.
Yeah.
Rather than paying you or charging your Sunday surcharge,
cut it out.
Close on a Sunday.
Or look at one service on a Sunday rather than 2 or 3 or whatever it may be.
And you might see that by doing that, you'll create demand for that one day that's failing. Or as you said, I'm always about trying to play offensive rather than defense. I mean, let's try and work on something to drive revenue on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Depending on the restaurant, depending where your location is. If you're a local neighbourhood bistro, then Why don't you do a BYO Wednesday night?
Yeah,
You know?
and that's the thing. There's a lot of, sort of marketing tips and tricks,
Value
for lack of
adds
a phrase, that are there that don't cost a lot of money. And I think there's plenty of solutions out there if you're willing. But it's also, and I've had this conversation before. Don't try once.
No.
You got to commit to it for
Yep.
a certain period of
Few months
time,
at
because
least.
at least a quarter of like, all right. Again, people, like you said, we're all simple people. But if we know that restaurant's doing that thing on a Wednesday for 12 weeks, or we just know that's what they're doing, then we're going to try it.
The only thing that I'm really, really against is discount marketing.
Why?
Like, I just think it's cheap. It just cheapens your product. Like if
And
I'm
your
going
brand,
if I'm going to do half price Mondays, then I know factually that I'm probably not going to get you on a Saturday night, because why would I go Saturday night when I can have it for half price on a Monday?
It's a different market, right?
It really is, and I'm not suggesting that I'm completely right. It's just what I believe in and what works for my businesses. So I'd much rather try and value add something.
Like what? Like what's an example of a value add? Like a meal deal sort of thing. Like come in 2 meals and a glass of wine, or
well, it depends on the business. Like Boca, we takeaway we focus on because we don't require any front of house labour.
Yeah.
So I know I've already got a little bit of fat up my sleeve there. So let's package up 2 large pizzas, a side dish, and a 6-pack of beers.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about half price.
That's what Hep was saying last week.
Yeah.
He does that once a week now, or once every couple of weeks. It's easy.
Yeah. Rather than go 2 for 1.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get anywhere. I've just put my foot a little bit on the brake as I'm on a downhill slide.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather, pile some pressure into some strategic marketing in and around, give a couple of dinners away, and try and get some interest in, get a reviewer in, or do something that's you're trying to drive revenue rather than save yourself to death.
Yeah,
I think is more beneficial. Do a wine night where you might do a flight of South Australian Rieslings and pair it up with something spicy, or do an oyster
and talk to your
night.
Suppliers about getting some deals for that, or whatever it may be, and try and give some value back to them as well.
Yeah.
Get them to talk about it as well through their socials. And that's the thing where one of the other things is that conversation that people say, how do I help?
Yep.
Particularly for small business and local businesses, there's that meme that's been around for years now. It's like, share their post, like their post, tag a friend in it, say something nice on social media, because it's so rare these days, because everyone jumps on any of the review, I use that term in inverted commas, review sites.
I don't.
And says, well, some people
we should do a whole thing on that.
We don't. We probably should.
We need to get like one of the big
companies in.
Yeah, we should try
like
it, because
Yelp
I've got a
those.
really strong view on it.
But I think, as I said, everyone jumps on those for negatives, but the amount of positives on there, you just don't see very much.
I don't read them.
You don't read them at all?
I haven't. Luke, they all my staff go, "Do you see that review on the weekend?" I'm like,
no. Why? Because it's funny, because I remember having a conversation with
pointless.
Dave Rayner about this years ago, and I said to him, I said, well, what do you do? Because this is pre-COVID, and we were talking about how the impacts of reviews and online reviews in particular on mental health of owners, chefs, everyone throughout the industry, and how it's a slippery slope, and you can read it and you can get bogged down into it. And I said to David Rayner, and it was in front of a group of people, and I said, what are your thoughts? He's like, I don't read them. He's like, there's no point. You're basically shouting at a cloud sort of thing. So
it's pointless. And I factually know, and I've been told, other restaurant owners have reviewed our restaurant, never been in there, but have written a review on every platform they can get their hands on to try and hurt us. And they would rather pour their energy into doing that. You talk about tall poppy syndrome. It's just, that's the culture and the life that the restaurant industry is firmly embedded into. Like, it's really fucking stupid.
That's pretty sad.
But even the people who want to jump onto come into a restaurant, don't open their mouth, have a shit time. We don't want you to pay for the food if it's shit or something's gone wrong, which sometimes it does. Talk to us so at least we can not charge you for it.
Yeah.
But the fact that you eat it up at the table, then go home and pull your laptop out and just pile on.
Yeah.
I can't help you. I don't want to even listen to it. There's so many bots out there now. Like for $100, I can pay on a specific website that will just smash your business.
Positively or negatively, or both?
Depending on how much you want to pay.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Jeez.
There was some ridiculous. Corey might be able to give us some data on this, but there's this the amount of when Elon Musk brought X or Twitter,
Yeah.
how many fake accounts were on Twitter?
Just bots.
Like fucking
Hundreds of millions of.
hundreds of millions of, like it was, and that's what he had a big blow up and nearly pulled out of the purchase of Twitter, because he's saying the value of it was based on users, and this
And half
many
of them aren't
users
real.
weren't real. Like it was
Around 20%.
20%.
20% of what? Of
Twitter.
the users weren't real.
I better read that review. Like, do yourself a favour, and half the people, I'm not going to read mine. I've never, not one comment, not one. Let's just take one platform, Google.
Yep.
I don't know how many reviews we've got on there. You could probably pull it up.
For
and
where?
have a look.
For market?
Oh, anyway. And not one has been responded to. I just let them have their voice, and if it makes them feel better, so be it.
I do like it when owners do respond though.
Yeah, but then you like it because it's usually highly emotional.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah.
Somebody told, and this goes back to my early
You
days.
got
on Ocean Street.
1982 reviews on
Oh,
Google.
fantastic!
Do you want to read a couple?
I had one lady tell me back in the Ocean Street days that she wanted me to die of colon cancer.
That's lovely.
Personally, isn't that really nasty? I could never. I don't think I could tell somebody that.
Wow.
People that don't want to do anything.
Yeah, there's some interesting one on there actually.
Luke told me that there was one on there complaining we gave too many chips.
Yeah, that came up first actually.
Dare you?
Yeah, there was definitely something there, but
Potato famine? Disgusting.
Anyway, yeah.
oh shit. Yeah, I mean I never read those anyway. Wow.
Go read one.
No.
No, read one.
All right, hang on.
Read a
I'll
real
go
bad
back
one.
there.
Yeah, do that.
Well, there's some recent
Can
ones on
you
there. Some
pull
one stars that are
pull
quite funny.
Pull the handle out.
This is gonna
Give him the handle.
Hang on, let me. Oh no, where to go? How many?
9 minutes.
Oh, this is. Oh no, this is Google. Hang on. So I'll do the lowest rated. Oh no, well shit. That's a fucking War and Peace. No, hang on. There's not. The good thing is there's not a lot of low rates in here. There's a few. I know. So there's only 492 reviews on there. 4.3 stars. That's pretty good. Oh no, I can't read these.
No, read one. Go on. Hook in.
Well, this is
Who's the person?
MK. So it doesn't
Melissa
have a-
Kelly.
It's just your wife. We've been a bunch of times, but this is 1 out of 5. for
How
everything.
recent?
7 months ago.
Oh, right, okay.
We've been a bunch of times, but after last night, we won't be returning. You need to sort out your staff. You've got 16 to 17-year-old boys running the place who have no clue what they're doing. My wife and I got seated and sat and waited for 30 minutes without being served. We had to stop a waiter. There should have been a comma there. We had to stop a waiter as he walked past and asked to order drinks. Not only that, she was served her main and had no fork. Then she had to wait for a further 15 to grab a young man attention to get cutlery. By that point, food was cold. Very disappointed. When we got the bill, we went to pay, and the young lady had huge holes in her white volleys. This place is not what it used to be like. It's dumpy and trashy and run by kids. Not impressed at all. Fuck.
Ouch.
This could be a whole episode,
MK.
actually. MK. Fuck, it doesn't like the volleys.
Thanks, Mel.
Jesus.
Bitch.
Yeah, let's hope that's not your wife. But yeah, is there any value in that? Jeez, I mean, there's a part of me that's like, well, hang on.
Mate,
you could
there's
jump on straight away and go, well, then what have we done wrong and everything else?
There is some serious, like even Ash, who is our social media and our marketing manager, who's does an unbelievable job, who we have stand-up arguments about how this should be treated, because Marketing 101 at university says respond, get them offline, take the argument personally.
Yeah.
That you can't. First of all, nobody can get that offline. If I wanted that gone, I'd need to write to Google, and in a previous life where I've tried to do that, it's more or less
You've
impossible.
got to, you basically, it can be done, but you've got to prove that it's that there's intent there to be malice or to malicious or whatever.
There's
it
a
may be.
95% chance it's not going anywhere,
Yeah.
right?
And
Even
also,
if
it's there. It's up there.
and
Someone
the
can screenshot that or whatever.
The user can't delete it now.
Really?
No, you can't. I can't delete it. So I could jump on there and just throw a bunch of weight behind it and smash them back.
Yeah.
But the argument's not going anywhere. It's
point?
just soaking up so much energy of mine. So I'm like, have your say. I don't read it. When people go, I'll write a review, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, and I'm bringing it back to what we're sort of
I'm not trying to be arrogant or ignorant about that either.
Yeah.
Like, I'd much rather my staff putting the energy and effort into the people in the restaurant, trying to gauge if people are having a good time there. Like everything, we're not going to get it right all the time.
There's going to be one every now and then.
One of the things I try and encourage punters, is have a voice when you're in the restaurant. You don't have to be a prick about it.
Prefer to know.
It just means that we can do something about it. So then hopefully you might not ever come back, but I don't. Even if you'll never come back, I don't want you to pay for your food if you've had a shit time.
Yeah.
So at least don't ever come back, but then keep your $100 in your pocket.
Exactly.
And that's what I want.
Yeah.
If you don't come back, that's a decision you make, and I'm okay with that. But I just don't want you to pay for something that's substandard.
There's one on the weekend that I saw from a certain restaurant in Beechworth who he's very good at snapping back. And straight away it was taken down because she posted a review. He then was like, just to update everyone else on what's going on.
Was it on Yelp or?
I can't remember what it was on, but it's gone. Because he's like, just so everyone's aware, you came into this venue completely intoxicated. We had to manage you from the second you walked in and yada, yada, yada. And it was just like, so that's just part of the story. And all of a sudden that review came down.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, I sort of get that as well. I think the thing is, and just tying back into what we sort of started talking about today was this idea of everything's closing and everything else, is that you can get stuck on this kind of stuff and it can eat you away. And it does take you away from the price. Like you're right for price. Exactly right.
Rather than read that shit, and some people may have a different view, and I'd love to listen. I'd love somebody to come in and talk and argue the point with me. And if I'm proven wrong, and for some reason you've convinced me to read them and respond to them, then all the power to you. But rather than spend half an hour reading those reviews, knowing that I can't help in any other way, spend half an hour out with your customers. Give away some of the new dishes you're trying and ask them for their opinion, because I challenge you that if you're sitting in a restaurant and the owner of the restaurant or the restaurant manager came over and said, I've seen what you ordered today. Is there any chance we've just got this new chicken dish on the menu? Do you mind if I give you one of those dishes if you tell me what you think? You'd be sitting back going, fucking hell, this person really they really like what I've got to say.
Yeah.
That's better use of your time than reading that fucking rubbish. That's what I say. Because clearly we were never going to make that person happy, because the staff don't walk around with holes in their volleys at Market Bistro. And I could tell you 100 reasons why that probably happened, but invest your energy where you can have a big difference, and on a laptop is not fucking one of them.
Control the controllables.
That's right. Spend some time with your customers.
Yep.
And I encourage if you're an owner or a chef or a manager, eat in the restaurant from a customer's perspective.
Yeah.
Sit down and have a look.
Yeah.
The amount of people that I know that own restaurants who don't eat in them it's outrageous. You need to see it from a customer's perspective.
I think it's also from a manager's point of view, same thing. And managers need to sit down and literally physically sit down. You see everything at a different level, and you can go, oh, that looks dirty from here, and it doesn't look dirty from over there, or whatever it may be. So.
I would never have known that we've got a significant problem with the linen at Market Bistro, because it leaves lint on your pants and your shirt. Now, I would never have known that if it wasn't the fact that if I go in there and have a business meeting at lunch, and then I spend the rest of the afternoon picking white fluff balls off my pants, that's going to piss off a lady who's just spent a bunch of money on a dress to look her best to come into market, and now she's got lint all over her dress. You would never have known that unless you were sitting in the restaurant. So just little things like that I think is so important.
Yeah. Good.
And direct your energy into where it counts, and those revenue journals and data is so important. Now, if it starts to go pear-shaped, then the first person you need to speak to is your landlord.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing if you can either pack up and run away, or give the landlords a chance as well. Just ask him, is there some rent-free period that I can have? Can I have 6 months grace?
Yeah.
He's just going to tack on that 6 months at the end of your lease.
Yeah.
But give yourself a bit of breathing room.
Yeah.
But don't just spend that money that you usually pay in rent. invest it back in your business, do some
Put it into
marketing,
something,
try
yeah.
and do something that's going to benefit your business
Yeah.
rather than just saving yourself to death.
Yeah.
But if you are fucked and you are losing a bunch of money and you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, speak to your accountant, speak to your lawyer, speak to your landlord, just have a voice. Just
Get
don't,
ready.
yeah. Everything can be worked out. It's just how much damage
Yep.
that you're going to suffer. And you want to try and minimize that for you, your staff, and the landlord the best you can.
Absolutely. Good advice. All right. Thanks, mate.
Till next week,
till
mate.
Next week, we'll be
Forward
back
to it.
and do it all over again. Cheers.
Thanks, Corey.